Hello and welcome to Fanteam Focus. It's a Saturday morning and we're going to talk Fanteam. My name is Reese. I'm joined today by Callum and Josh. How are we both, lads?
Very well, mate. Very well, thank you.
Josh, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah, guys, if you didn't know, Josh is a very special guest today. He actually won the Fanteam £1 million game last year. We've been chatting a little bit before we went on air here today. He's very excited to be rating your teams, believe it or not. So we're going to be rating 4 of your teams. One of the teams has 2 teams, so 4.5 teams. And yeah, we're just excited to have Josh on the show today. We'll do a little interview with him as well, ask him some questions, find out like the nuts and bolts. How did he win? How did he feel when he won, etc. All the standard stuff you would expect. Huge giveaway as well today. Callum, what have we got?
So yeah, we'll have another ticket giveaway, same as last week. It'll be someone that has replied to our original tweet and that is live in the chat afterwards as well. So again, it'll be the same as last week. We'll give it away to someone that is here, is listening. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And if you haven't already replied to our original tweet, make sure you do to make sure you are in with a chance of winning. But yeah, it's I was just going to say before we move on, I've had a week scouting, Reese. I've had a week scouting. I've been back into the home of I went to MK Don Spurs on Wednesday. Obviously, I'm a big Spurs fan, and it was nice to get back into the ground after a couple of years. And I tell you what, I'm just going to go straight in, and I was going to throw it out there. Lucas Moura is going in a game week 1 draft somewhere, right? Because bear with me here, because I know you're going to say no, don't do that, but. Bergwijn is terrible, right? He's really, really bad.
Okay.
Obviously, Brian Gill is still at the Olympics, so he's not going to be in game week 1. The front 4, I'm pretty much sure, is going to be Kane, Son, Ali, and Lucas. And Lucas has looked superb in pre-season. He scored, he got an assist. He was genuinely everywhere. So Lucas Moura, here you go. You know, this is the fan team focus. This is the sort of tips we give you. Yeah. Lucas Moura is going to start in game week 1. And anyone that is going Matt Doherty is my other one. Take him out. He's the worst football player I've seen at Spurs in many a year. I don't know if he's just because he's scored goals at Wolves. Because when we signed him, I was like, you know what, he's wicked. Like, yeah, great signing. And now I watch him. He is the most pony right back I've ever seen at Spurs in my life. So get in Lucas Moura, take out Matt Doherty, and if you want to go maybe Dele Alli, he could be another one. But anyway, that's enough of my ramblings. There you go. That's been my week's journey, Reese. I've been going on the scouting mission.
Well, I can see people logging off as we speak, so don't worry, guys. We've got some good insight as well to follow. Some proven results there. But no, I'm only joking. I think Matt Doherty, though, I think you're right. He was more used to like a wing back role, wouldn't he? And I think the right back and wing back roles are slightly different.
It's just that every time he gets the ball, he goes backwards. I've never seen him go forward in his life. And obviously, it seems like we're going to play a back 4. Nuno's not really played a back 5 anywhere. And every time he gets it, he just turns backwards and he plays backwards. He doesn't look good going forward. He can't beat a man. He can't cross. He doesn't get into positions to score. And I know I've seen loads of people throwing out, like Doherty under Nuno again could be a shout. Absolutely not. Genuinely, I wouldn't even go regular on. He doesn't. I don't think he offers a lot going forward either. So, you know, Son's my Spurs, but I bloody love him. Yeah. He played so well again, man. I don't know if you saw his finish in the first half, but yeah, he's a man that oozes class. But anyway, yeah, no Doherty, into Lucas. Heard it here first. When I win it next year, you'll all know why.
What do you think, Josh?
It took me by surprise, that one, I have to admit. I'm glad you've steered me away from Reguilón and Doherty because I was still considering them. So I'm glad that it's like one less rubbish player to have to own. So that's good. And I love Son. I absolutely love Son. I think he's one of the best players in the Premier League. So I absolutely love that shout.
I think Reggie could be okay. 5 million in fan team, I think. I don't know.
He's a better shout than Doherty, but I don't know with Reguilón. He seems to flatter to deceive. I was excited when we signed him, and he was a little bit. He looks like he's suited to foreign football, not English football. He's a little bit weak. He's a little bit not a lot to him. He's okay going forward, but yeah, I'd be staying away. It looks like bloody Eric Dyer's going to start probably first game week. So that's all you need to know about Spurs defense is Eric Dyer is starting. So you know, just move away, stay away from the defense.
Oh, that's got me thinking about 4.5. Haven't they sold, who was it, Alderweireld or Vertonghen? I always get them mixed up. But
Alderweireld, yeah.
Just recently sold him, have they?
So yeah, it looks like we're going to sign Romero from Atalanta and some really long name from Bologna. It's like Yushi something.
To
But
partner
I think
Eric Dyer.
yeah, probably. I'd rather Tanganga. Tanganga is
Yeah, he's good.
good, but again, he's linked with Galatasaray, so that seems very strange. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Dyer's going to be nailed, which is just dread to think that we've got Man City game week 1 and Eric Dyer's going to be starting. So yeah, that's all we need to know.
So Josh, you won Fanteam last year. Tell us how much did you win, and can you tell us a little bit about like your fantasy history? Where did you start, and how did this all come about for you?
Absolutely, mate. So yes, so last year it was a €20 entry on Fanteam, and I won. I was lucky enough to win the 200,000. It was in euros, so it's obviously in pounds this year is the only difference, but it's still an amazing, surreal amount of money, and I couldn't believe when it happened. Obviously, I didn't expect it even till the last game week. I didn't think I had a chance of winning. So like to have won is just amazing. As far as my fantasy history, so I've played FPL since I was like 12, but like just putting a team in and not really understanding the game and like just probably quitting halfway through the season quite often. I probably started playing properly like 4 years ago, like watching videos such as like Let's Talk FPL, etc. Just like really trying to like learn about how to actually play the game rather than the way I was playing it. So yeah, the last sort of 4 years I've been really into it. I've had a couple of okay FPL finishes. Not last year, ironically. Last year I had like my worst season for ages, but the two before that were okay. So I've really enjoyed fantasy, and I've played it for quite a while. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I can relate to that a little bit because I think I've played fantasy football in many different guises for such a long time, probably since I was about 13 or something. But I never really like understood the rules properly. Do you know what I mean? Until about 2 years ago, I didn't know that you had like 2 wild cards, for example, and yeah, I was just probably putting teams in, missing weeks after weeks after weeks. But it was only until I started I think it was until I started getting a bit lucky and doing a bit well, where I started like trying to learn more, like you said, about it and stuff. So yeah, I think it's one of those games where it just kind of hooks you in slowly, isn't it, for some people?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened with me. I think a few more of my friends started playing it. That's always a big incentive to want to get into it and beat your friends, obviously. So that's what happened to me. Yeah. So, and it like you mentioned off stream, like obviously I've played poker a lot. It sort of goes hand in hand with FPL. Like so, a lot of my poker mates love playing FPL because it's just another way of like using skill to gamble, basically. So like a lot of us have got like our own little league and stuff. So that's always very competitive and very fun.
Yeah, mini leagues they're always the start of it, aren't they? Like trying to beat your friends and stuff like that. So you mentioned poker there. Can you tell us a little bit of history about your poker and maybe how that has influenced or helped you in games like Fanteam and FPL?
Yeah, so I really started playing poker at uni. I went to Warwick, and like they had a really like decent history of like producing like quite good poker players. So the poker society was quite big, and ironically that's where like my Twitter handle comes from, because I was like president of Warwick Poker Sock. So like my name on Twitter now is Warwick Poker Sock, because that's how people used to know me as at uni, basically. Um, and I just haven't really ever changed it, to be honest. I just like it's been like a bit of an inactive account for a few years, but since I got back into fantasy, I just started tweeting a few things, and like I didn't bother changing the handle. So that's where that comes from. I normally play online poker and I play tournaments mainly, but recently I've got a bit more into playing a few live tournaments as well, because I've really missed like the social aspect of it. Um, and yeah, like I say, I always play poker with my friends. And thanks to obviously Fanteam, I'm going to go to Vegas next summer and play the main event, the World Series main
Wow.
event. So
Are you?
it's going to be like a dream bucket list item for me. Yeah,
Sick.
it's wild.
What I was going to ask you, how many did you say you only put one team in last year for Fanteam?
No, so I had 12 last
you
year.
have
They were
12.
all completely different ones. Like I think Alan mentioned he might be doing like 5 just completely different ones, whatever. I think I entered 8 in game week 1, and I late reg like 4 more or something. So I had 12 in total. Um, and they were all completely different. But like obviously I picked from like sort of a list of like 30 players and just did different combinations of that kind of thing. And it produced some really wild different teams. And I think ironically it was like my wildest one that ended up winning the whole thing. So like I remember I started with like Bellerin, Bertrand, Kieran Gibbs, Ben White. It was like such a shoddy defense, but like that's just 4 names as examples, and yeah, it just worked out. So that's what happened.
Oh, mad. So at what point then did you manage all those teams all the way through the game, or was there a point where some of the teams fell off and you just kind of kept your one team which looked like it was going to do well, or did you cash in multiple teams?
Yeah, so there was definitely like a shift in focus. There was a certain point, probably like in the week 20s somewhere, so like maybe 25 or something, where I was literally spending 5 minutes to do my bottom 8 teams. I was literally just pressing the first guy that like looked like he fitted in the team. You know what I mean? So I was doing those transfers in like 5 minutes total, and then I was spending hours on like my top 4. I had 4 teams that were doing really well. They were like all in the top 200 or 100 or something. So I was like really focusing on those ones, and ironically, the 3 that didn't win all dropped off a little bit towards the end because I was taking massive punts in them, trying to get in those like elusive top 20 spots or whatever. I was taking mad risks, and they all didn't pay off, to be honest. But luckily, the one that mattered, I got more luck than in all the other teams combined. So it was perfect. Really, it dropped perfect for me.
Did you find it hard then to manage the multiple teams, or did it kind of help maybe because maybe you were not overthinking because you didn't have time to think so much about if you just had one team, for example?
Yeah, 12 was a real sweet spot for me. I thought that was really manageable, like over the season. I really did find it all right. But I used to do it where I did my bad teams first. So I did my bottom 8 teams first. And ironically, like if I ever, sometimes I like made a mistake on one of those, for example, and it sort of refreshed in my mind like not to make that mistake on my good teams. You know what I mean? So I sort of got the errors out the way on the ones where I was doing it in like 4 or 5 minutes, and then it made sure I didn't make as many mistakes on my good team. So I was happy with the strategy, and I think I'm gonna have a similar number of teams this year in terms of like I might do duplicates of each one, but I only want to have like 10 transfers to do each week maximum. I don't really want to have to do more than that because I think in the Euros I had like 100 different teams and it was wild. I just couldn't even manage that many teams. It was just too much for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see, because I'm new to Fanteam this year, so I'm coming over from FPL, and I'm thinking at first I'm thinking just one team, but obviously speaking to you now, the 12 teams, one in between 1 and 12 somewhere, maybe 2. I'm thinking, but yeah. So what are you thinking this year? Are you confident? Who are your star picks, do you think, for game week 1?
Oh, nice. So yeah, I'm not. Let's be real. I'm not going to win the whole thing again. I don't think it's even vaguely possible. But I hope someone who's like in the Twitter community or who watches these videos, for example, I hope they can have a really good run and have like a decent high finish. You know what I mean? I think that'll be somewhat of like a nice thing for me. Even if like I give a few tips and a few people like listen to them and do really well, that'll be amazing. As for star picks, I've got a real soft spot for Mane this year. I think they've underpriced him, to be honest. I love him to bit. I don't think he's necessarily captain material to start with, but I think he's like 1 million underpriced for me. So I love him. For a cheap defender, I really like Luke Ayling. I think he should have got way more attacking returns last year. He's 4.5. Leeds did really quite well defensively in the second half of last season, so I hope that continues. And I think he might be a really nice pick as well. And then my punt up front, which I think is like everyone's punt up front, is Ivan Toney. I think like he's 6 million. I think that they've priced him too cheap again, to be honest. So I'm hoping he has a bit of a nice start to the season, and I'll have him in most of my teams, I think.
So he's 6 million in Fanteam, is he? And then 6.5 in FPL.
Yeah, that's what I've been looking at, to be honest. Like anyone who's a bit cheaper on Fanteam than FPL, I've been like circling them, almost like double starring them and being like, is this a good price? You know what I mean? Because if it's less than FPL, you'd think that might be an indication that it's a good price. So I know Rafinha's more on Fanteam than FPL. That's put me off straight away psychologically. I think he's in my FPL team like as my first pick. But on Fanteam, he's like 1 million more, and I'm looking to see if I can find value elsewhere on that one, I think.
Interesting to see they've priced Bobby Firmino down at 7.5. Did you see that?
Yeah, they've done Mane and Firmino are just like 1.5 to 2 million cheaper than they are in FPL. They've made them like
Yeah, so we're going to go straight into rating your teams now, guys. The first team up is Hibbo FPL. So Hibbo, thanks for sending your team in on Twitter. Myself, Callum and Josh will go through it now. I will just read it out for the benefit of the audio listeners. Sanchez in goal, 4.5 million, Brighton. Alexander-Arnold, Luke Shaw, Digne and Dunk. Midfield, he's got Salah, Fernandez and Buendia. Up front, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Antonio. And then on the bench, Foster, Gilmore, Brownhill, and the gentleman whose name I still cannot pronounce, and I don't think I will be able to for another couple of weeks yet. Callum, we'll go straight to you. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's nice to see you coming to the expert opinion first. Thank you. So I am. There's a distinct lack of Tottenham in this, but I can see through it for now. I really like the structure. There's not a lot of money on the bench. I think probably that's the way to go more in Fanteam. I'm starting to lean now towards, you know what, I'm not particularly that bothered about my bench as long as I've got kind of a couple of 4.5 mils in there. I don't know if Brownhill, I've seen, because didn't he score like one goal in a friendly or something? And everyone went, oh my God, Josh Brownhill's going to be a pick.
Yeah, exploded on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's some better 4.5 million options there, I think, for the bench to save 0.5 somewhere. He's gone with the classic premiums, the Salah, the Fernandez, Trent. I think I've not yet seen a draft yet without Trent. I don't think. I think he's pretty much nailed, isn't he? What's the Lewis Dunk situation? Is he injured for the season or just a little bit?
So I looked this up the other day actually because he's key for me in a couple of my teams in terms of Fanteam and FPL, and it sounds like he's had toe surgery. I'm just going to turn my volume up a touch here. Sounds like he's had toe surgery. But they're expecting him to be back for game week 1. But it just sounds a bit kind of, doesn't it?
Yeah, so. See, Brighton are they're going to be that team this year that we don't know. They're Sanchez is obviously massively highly owned, great price. You know, did well last year, made loads of saves. How much of a difference without Ben White are they going to be? Is it going to be that team that, you know what, they really underperformed in all the stats last year and they should have got, you know, more goals and they should have more points, etc. I don't know if Brighton are going to be that team where everyone goes down and falls down that trap this year, whether actually, you know, it's Brighton. Like, they're not particularly that good. I don't know if everyone's just got falling down the Sanchez trap and then throwing in Dunk in there. Obviously, I know why, because we've talked about it before and last week that, you know, Dunk, I think, had the most shots on target for a defender last year. Obviously, being 0.6 on Fanteam for each one of those, it's a massive, massive score. So I can see why he's gone down that. The Trent, Shaw and Digne, again, I think they're the three standout defenders probably on Fanteam. Obviously, probably throw Robertson into there, but obviously you can't quite afford all of them. So love that pick. Again, the midfield, Buendia's one of those now that just, I don't know if Grealish leaves. I actually think Buendia is going to be probably a bit more of a pick for me, because I think then, you know, at Villa, Grealish is always the one that just stands out. It's like, you know, that same one to any other team where, you know, you've got that one key player that everyone kind of, everything goes through. So actually, in my head, I'm a bit like, well, if Grealish leaves, does that then make Buendia the main man? And does he then, you know, go and shine on that? Or, you know, if Grealish stays, would he take all the attention? You know, people have the game plan to stop Grealish, and therefore Buendia is a little bit more free to go and shine and to do his stuff, because, you know, we're seeing how good he is. You know, Buendia is a very, very good player. So Buendia is a really strange one. I don't know if we want Grealish to go or Grealish to stay.
I agree with that.
I'm not really sure what way that will fall. But yeah, and then again, the strikers, I think there's so many cheap striker options that it almost makes playing at maybe wrong, but I think Aubameyang's maybe like the second highest price striker, I think, on Fanteam. All of the 7.5 strikers are proper, like, you know, there's loads of options there. It makes it difficult to pick your Kanes and your Vardys and your Aubameyangs, because you've got your Watkins, your Antonios, your Calvert-Lewin, who've all obviously got nice fixtures. yeah, my one thing in this team, I would say, I think Brownhill, I think there's a better replacement. I think he's probably fallen into the Twitter trap there. And the Lewis Dunk is probably a wait and see. And then obviously the Buendia. Yeah, I'm the jury's out on Buendia, but I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like that, Callum. Josh, what do you think, mate?
Absolutely. So I think Callum's nailed it with the Brownhill point. So I think looking at this, what I would do is I'd take Brownhill down to a 4.5, and I'd move the last sub up to a 4.5 actually, just so you got free playing defenders. Like you don't have to spend the world on them, but you can have like 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. I think I wouldn't pay 5 million for Brownhill. No way. I think I've actually got him on FPL. I think because he's a 4.5 on there, but exactly. I think for 5, that's too much. I think for 5. Sanchez, like an alternative to that, could be the Wolves goalkeeper, Sarr. I think 4.5 for him. He's likely to make more saves than Sanchez, I think, because Sanchez just doesn't get many saves.
It's an interesting price. Yeah, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, it's really important on Fanteam to like nail the saves because you get more points for them on Fanteam than you do on FPL. So I'd rather go for like the Wolves goalie, Sarr, I think, or maybe even the Palace goalkeeper with the 2 centre-back signings they've made. I think they've really invested really well so far. Other than that, I really like this starting 11 personally. I think it's a really nice start. As Callum alluded to again, I like the 3 like midi price strikers. I think that's the right structure to go with. Having 2 or 3 of those in your team rather than spending up or spending down. And then he's got the tried and tested Salah and Bruno in midfield, and the defense is good too, I think.
So in terms, just quickly, Josh, in terms of those 4.5 defenders, obviously you're saying you'd put the 4 up to a 4.5. Just looking through kind of the prices here, you know, are you going down at? There's a few Arsenal players there, Bellerin. I don't know how much your start is, 4.5. There's a few Watford defenders at 4.5. Again, Palace, there's lots of 4.5. Obviously, Leicester have got Fofana in there at 4.5. Eric Dyer at 4.5. Obviously, Burnley, you've got loads. Newcastle, you've got loads. Which kind of 4.5? 8 Nori at Wolves. Which kind of which kind of 4.5 defenders would you be looking at to kind of move up there?
Let me just write this down now. Hold on.
So you mentioned Arsenal. I think Ben White could be a great 4.5 now. He's going to start, right? So I'm pretty sure that's a nice 4.5. He's not so attacking, but for starting Arsenal defender, that's not bad. I always like the Burnley guys because they aim to defend.
So solid, aren't they? Solid.
That's their whole game plan, to defend, be solid at the back. So Charlie Taylor's my favourite of those, I think. Others like Loughton, but I prefer Taylor, I think. The Wolves guys, again, are all 4-5 pretty much. I think Semedo's my favourite because I think he's the most nailed.
Again, is 8 Nori, is he a Twitter trap as well?
I think he is. There's a lot of talk because he's playing left wing at the moment, but he's like, it's almost like they're putting a round peg in a square hole, basically. It's he's playing there because other people are still on international duty or still resting at the moment. So I think once push comes to shove, I think he's going to be on the bench, to be honest. So I like Semedo, and the other nailed one's Cody, but it's so boring. Like he doesn't even go up for corners most.
I feel like that with Fofana at Leicester. I'm a bit like, there's not a lot of attack in return there, is there?
No, and then the other one I mentioned earlier was Luke Ayling. I think he's great, to be honest. So with a bit of attacking threat, they're decent defensively, or were at the end of last year at least. So I think that's another nice option for a 4-5 defender.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with both of you almost entirely, to be honest with you. The main, I like this team a lot. What I would do with this team personally is exactly what you guys have said, because Brownhill seems like he's 0.5 overpriced here. So you could easily get him down to, say, a Basuma or someone very similar who's going to do the exact same job. Get that 0.5 and, again, invest it in the weakest part of the team, which looks like it's that Norwich player last on the bench there. Maybe you don't need the last on the bench position so much. I know in FPL, for example, before the COVID times, my personal preference was to maybe have a 4.0 dud player last on the bench, so maybe you could still use that 0.5 elsewhere in your team, or even just keep it in your bank. The first 11 I really like. Brighton defensively, obviously, expected data is really good. Shaw, Trent, Digne, you can't fault these players. Salah, Fernandes, Buendia. I agree with you totally, Callum. There's huge question marks about how productive Buendia is going to be in the scenarios which could come to pass at Aston Villa. But I don't think there's a question that he's going to be in the team, which is what you want. Yeah.
Did I read yesterday that haven't they bid 100 million?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, 100
That's
million.
ridiculous. And that just cements to me Kane's not going anywhere, because if Grealish is worth 100, Kane's worth 200, and I don't think even Man City have got 300 million to spend. So I think that just even more confirms I think Kane is nailed to stay.
Yeah, I can't. I don't agree.
I know you want him to go, Reece. I know you want him to go, but it's not.
It's not I want him to go. It is that I just think that he will. I just think that I can't see Man City. I'm actually surprised that they've gone for Grealish. Just to go on a bit of a side note, because they've got a lot of those types of players in those positions, haven't they? They got like Ferran Torres, Raheem Sterling, Mahrez.
I think Sterling would go. I think
I'm
if
sure
they
there's
bought
more.
Grealish, I think Sterling would move.
Do you think? Because what I think in one scenario I can see happening is like a big player going to Spurs in a swap deal. So like a Jesus or like a Sterling or something like that would kind of reduce the kind of cash outlay.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I
Do you see what I mean?
wouldn't want either of them. Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know how I've got back onto Spurs again. Sorry, I need to stay away.
We'll rename it the Spurs podcast.
Yeah, that's maybe what I need to move
I don't mind talking
into.
Spurs with you. It's good.
But yeah, just Josh, because you're talking about there, in terms of money in the bank, do you think that's a necessity, or do you think it's a nice to have, but it doesn't really bother you?
I think it's definitely a good idea. I think it's somewhere in between those two things you said. I think it's a really nice to have, maybe. I think it's like anyone who's doing that, I always say great idea. I think that's really sensible, because it means you can like wait till right at the end of the week to do your transfers, because you don't have to worry about price rises. I know there might not be any in the first week or two anyway. I think that's what Fanteam are saying. But like for in week 3 or week 4 or whatever, if you've got a nice 0.5 in the bank, you don't have to worry about like you got a buffer, haven't you, to like do your transfers basically. So I think it's a good idea. And maybe Reece is right, actually. Maybe instead of investing in that last sub spot, maybe the 0.5 in the bank is better on this particular occasion.
Yeah, and just one more question. Sorry, Reece, I'm hijacking your stream just because I need all the help I can get.
We're a team. We're a team.
Yeah, in terms of late reg, Josh, what's your thing? Obviously, we're looking at 95% this year, aren't we? I agree. I think the 100% was slightly too much in the Euros. Especially as it was buy one get one free as well. I was like, well, hold on, I could have just waited here and thrown in 20 and got 40 for my money. But late reg, because that's something I'm debating with. Like I said, I've got 4 in at the minute. I do think 5 will be my max, and I'm kind of debating waiting on that 5th one and probably entering it after that game week 1. Is that something that you're going to go down again or not?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a small percentage of my teams that are like, so maybe 20% of my entries I'm going to late reg, I think. And I might do like 15% in game week 2, 5% in game week 3 or something. Because we do get an awful lot of extra information, especially with regard to transfers on this occasion, like people actually leaving their clubs and like going to different clubs. I think by game week 2 or 3, my thinking and even the way I'm building my teams might be completely different. And so it's nice to have a bit of a variation, you know what I mean, between my game week 1 teams and my game week 2 and 3 teams. So it's like a bit of insurance. That's the way I view it, the late reg sort of thing. And like, I think I will be saving a few teams to do a late reg, yeah, and just pick something absolutely wild, to be honest, maybe if it comes down to it.
Sorry, Reece, I just need all the help I can get, mate. So, no worries.
I've got a question for both of you as well. After I just ask people to smash the like button if you are watching live. I think we've got about between 20 and 30 people watching live at any one time, so we've only got like 7 likes. So please hit the like button. Liking the videos really helps us out and helps promote our fan team content throughout the YouTube universe. Hit subscribe if you're new. We got these streams coming out once a week, as well as short form kind of videos, fan team based throughout the week. One question I did want to ask you as well, as someone coming over from FPL into Fanteam, price rises. Now, I'm kind of all over price rises in terms of FPL. I'm always checking them, and they kind of inform when I'm doing my transfers, not necessarily who I'm transferring in, but when I transfer them in. How transparent then, with that in mind, is the kind of price rise scenario in Fanteam? Josh, I'm going to you.
I personally don't, because I don't know how it works, to be honest. I'll be the first to admit that. I don't know how the prices are calculated. My suspicion is it's based on like expected points and whether they massively overachieve on that or underachieve on that. But last season on my good team, especially the one that ended up winning, I did all my transfers 5 minutes before the deadline every single week, and price rises weren't a factor for me. I didn't care, to be honest, whether my players were going up or down. And by the way, my ending team value on the winning team was 107 million, which is more than enough to be like getting whoever you want by the end. You know what I mean? So I really strongly recommend just waiting until the end and using all the information you've got possible, and doing your transfers based on like all the press conferences and stuff, etc., rather than worrying about these price changes. That's my take on it. Callum, you got any thoughts on that? Or
No, I agree with you, and purely mainly because the fact that these streams will be happening at 10 till 11 every morning on a Saturday, and I'm going to need lots of help. So basically, I'm going to be relying on our YouTube community to basically make my transfers for me. So yeah, I'll be waiting until this stream every week on a Saturday, because obviously the lock will be, what is it, an hour and a half before on Fanteam as well? I'm not 100% sure. I think is it that?
Yep. Just it depends if there's a Friday game or not. Basically, that'll hold you back a little bit.
That will throw me out. But yeah, anything on a Saturday, I'll be making mine on this stream. So yeah, that's the way I'll be going anyway.
Should be exciting. Look forward to that. Okay, so let's move on to the next team, and for the benefit of the audio listeners, I will read the team out for you guys now. This comes in, by the way, from FPL Ron Hubbard, whose brilliance in picking Twitter names isn't quite matched by his screen grabbing ability, because he has slightly cropped his goalkeeper out, but I am able to just about see that it is Meslier from Leeds. He's then got Maguire, Van Dijk, Ben White. I think that's Van Dijk, yeah? That is Van Dijk, lads, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Ward-Prowse, Salah, Grealish, Fernandes, Jimenez. Is that Tammy Abraham?
Yep.
Watkins, Foster, Dunk, Gilmore, and Semedo. I'll go straight to Josh. What are your thoughts on this?
It strikes me as a very fun team. I think it's really fun, actually. I really like Van Dijk as an alternative to Trent. Talking about comparing to the first team, for example, I think 1.5 million save in there. As long as he's fit and as long as he's starting the season, I think that could be a really astute save in there.
Did you see the Twitter video of him conceding the other day?
No, I haven't seen it.
I don't know if you watch it. Try and find it on Twitter. It's hilarious. He gets turned inside out about 3 times, and I was like, obviously he's not played in however long, but it just made me laugh.
He's got
a relevant fact, but it did make me laugh.
He's got 1.5 million in the bank, guys, as well, which I've put here on the side of the stream. He commented in below his team, which is very helpful and might help you with your commentary here, Josh.
Yeah, that is useful to know, actually, because all of a sudden, if you make a few other savings across the team, you can suddenly make a massive upgrade, you know what I mean? So, yeah, 1.5's loads. I don't think he quite needs that much in the bank, but obviously it's never a bad thing to have a bit more flexibility. I think looking at the bench, I know we talked about this on the first team. I think this might be a little bit too much money on the bench, having like a 5, a 4-5, a 4-5. I think the ideal is 4-5, 4-5, 4-5. I've said that loads of times now, but yeah, I think maybe downgrade Dunk on as the first sub, maybe to a 4.5 or even a 4 million, and move the bench all up one, if that makes sense. And then we got to talk about this Tammy Abraham thing up front. I think this is very, very fun, to be honest. And like, I don't think you can pick him till he gets a move until you know where that is as well, to be honest. Because I know the teams he's been linked with are like West Ham, Villa, and Arsenal, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure he's first choice at any of those teams, even if he goes to those 3 teams. So I think Tammy has to be a wait and see. And I feel the same about Jimenez. I mean, this guy's been out of competitive football for like the best part of a year now, and it was a horrendous injury. So I think he might be a wait and see for me as well, to be honest.
Yeah, Callum, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, Ward-Prowse is interesting. Like, who was it? Villa put in an offer the other day.
Really?
Yeah, 25 million. They got rejected instantly, apparently.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to play out. Is Ward-Prowse now? I mean, Villa, in my mind, are a lot better than Southampton. I can't remember who it is on Twitter. This a big Southampton fan. They're all very downbeat about this season. Southampton. I don't think they're very optimistic. But obviously, you know, Ward-Prowse at Southampton. He's that player that, again, we spoke about last week. He's a 90-minute man, which as a midfielder is key on Fanteam. Obviously, getting that extra point at the end. Obviously, he's on every single set piece and. I don't think there's any better in the league, to be honest, set piece wise. So Ward-Prowse is a really interesting one. I like the pick. I don't know enough about Southampton. Again, there's still rumours that Ings is going to leave. And Southampton's just one of those strange ones that I'm still not sure on. So, if he goes to Villa, I certainly think he'll be a remove, just because I think there's a lot better options. Grealish, Watkins, Buendia are all better options. But yeah, Ward-Prowse is a strange one for me. Maguire as well. I've not seen Maguire in many drafts. I like the Maguire pick. And actually, I don't know if we're all sleeping on Man United a little bit, as much as I hate to say it. But, a Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Varane and Luke Shaw back four is strong. Obviously with a decent midfield in front of them as well. So I like the Maguire pick. How much is Maguire? Is he 6, 5.5?
5.5, yeah, 5.5.
Okay. What's Van Dijk? Is he 6?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that Maguire one interests me, because Luke Shaw is 6. So I would probably, like Josh said, I'd probably downgrade your bench, and I'd probably spend that extra 0.5 on Luke Shaw, to be honest, because I think he just offers a lot more potential, as assists and clean sheets and going forward and stuff and scoring goals. So I would probably, downgrade the bench. I'd probably upgrade Maguire to Shaw. But like Josh said, this is a fun team. I'm not sure I'll be going with Jimenez or Abraham in game week 1. I think they could be great punts for the monsters, the weekly monsters. I think they could be good differentials. And obviously going forward into the season, I could see Abraham at West Ham. I think with the Europa League, I think West Ham cannot rely on Antonio to be fit he can't be fit for a Prem season, let alone a Europa League campaign on top. So I could really see Abraham there, and then him and Antonio sharing the minutes, which is not ideal, because again, obviously we mentioned it, but that 1 point for your 90 minutes for your midfielders and strikers is just so key in Fanteam. So yeah, Abraham is very much a wait and see. Jimenez is very much a wait and see. But I like that this is not template, and that's the kind of thing. Again, Meslier in goal, save points, clean sheet points. Love that pick as well. So I really, really like the team. I just think I would like this team more in like game week 3, when I've been able to see him a bit more. But I'm not sure on a game week 1, but I love it as like a later punt.
Yeah, some excellent points there from the lads. I would say, in my opinion, Abraham is the red flag in this team. He would be someone who I would look to change straight away. Everybody else I could probably live with, but just to pick out the ones that, again, that personally are issues for me, I agree with Josh. Jimenez, I wouldn't go anywhere near. Listen, he could come in and start playing really well and start playing 90 minutes and scoring goals, but he fractured his skull last year, and he missed like a year's worth of football, like Josh was saying, and it's just a risk which I don't think you need to take. There's a lot of other options at that price, for example.
You know what? I've seen Gilmore in loads of drafts. I just don't really get the Gilmore pick. He's not got any attacking potential at all. We don't know if he's going to be nailed as a 90 every week. I just think there's better 4.5 options. I might be talking out of my ass, but that's the way I see it.
Let me try and sell Gilmore to you then, Callum. Here we go.
Go on, you sell him. Go on.
So Gilmore at 4.5, obviously, I'm not sure if this is true in Fanteam, but in FPL he was priced at 4.5 as a Chelsea player. He's then moved to Norwich, so now he's a 4.5 Norwich player. So he's moved there on loan. It looks like he's going to play in a kind of defensive, deep-lying playmaker role, which I think was occupied by, I want to say, Oliver Skipp last year from Tottenham, who was, and again, I'm not an expert on Norwich last season, but I think he was a 90-minute guy in that team, performed really, really well.
Yeah, he was in the Championship Team of the Year, Skipp.
Yeah, they are. So for me, by the sound of it and by what everyone informed football opinion I'm talking about now is saying about Gilmore, he's going to be head and shoulders above anybody in that Norwich team in terms of talent, maybe, but definitely potential. So you would imagine, you wouldn't think Chelsea are loaning him out to a team who aren't going to play him. Surely you would think that he comes in, plays that Oliver Skipp role 90 minutes. So for that reason, at that price, I think he could be an excellent option. I do think, though, it's a bit of a wait and watch, and I think the fixtures, certainly to start with, are just Bench, fine, leave him on your bench. But if you're expecting him in your first team, there's probably other ways I would go. Josh, what do you think about that? Sorry, Callum, go on you first.
Yeah, so just looking at the 4.5, the other options, you've got obviously Basuma is the one that stands out to me.
Yeah, I would.
He's proven, he's been there. He has shots from everywhere. Every time I watch him, he seems to be shooting from like 40 yards. Obviously, Gibbs White, again, I don't know if that's a Twitter trap. But in fairness, there's not a lot of 4.5 options. You're probably looking at Gilmore, Basuma, or Gibbs White, I think, unless Josh has got any nailed anywhere else.
Go on, Josh.
No, to be honest, I'm just on Gilmore. I'm really worried with Basuma that he's going to get a transfer because he's too good for Brighton. He's way too good. Like I know he was linked with Real Madrid earlier in the summer, for example. That probably doesn't happen, but a good team could take Basuma, and then you've lost a bench player basically. So I know Gilmore's going to start for Norwich. I don't think he's going to get many attacking returns, and he might get some yellow cards as well as the other down point for him. But I think I'm just happy to have Gilmore as my 4-5 fodder, unless I play 3-5-2, which is the other alternative, and then have a complete fodder. Like I think there's a guy called Hurst who I actually had him in my winning team a little bit last year. He was just sitting there as like last sub every week, but he's 4 million again, so it's nice to have a 4 million fodder, I think. So
what about Gibbs White? Do you think he's a trap?
Yeah, he's not nailed. He's definitely not nailed. He hasn't been nailed at Wolves since he's been there for like 5 years now, and he hasn't been nailed at all. He's been loaned out every year, and I assume they might do something similar even this year. So I'm not sure what the new manager thinks of him, to be fair. That's the only other side of the argument. But Gibbs White is not nailed for Wolves, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I think he's, again, a player. I do a lot of Football Manager stuff, and Gibbs White is definitely one for the future if you go by Football Manager as any kind of guide. But yeah, at the moment, it's still very much a development game, I think, by the looks of it for Gibbs White. And a 90-minute player, I don't think he is at all, no. I might be wrong, but that's what it looks like, yeah, in my opinion. Okay, I'll just finish up with my opinion on this team then. Meslier, I like. Leeds, we don't know if they're going to be the second half of the season Leeds or the first half of the season Leeds yet, but he scored a lot of points last season, so I don't think it matters for the goalkeeper position if you're going for Meslier. Maguire, I like. If there were points for shots off target in Fanteam, he'd be a great pick, but we'll see. Van Dijk, yeah, we'll see about his injury. Has he recovered? I don't think has he played 90 minutes in pre-season yet. Wait and watch, but yeah, definitely could be great. Ben White, I love at that price. Ward-Prowse is a very interesting, I think, exciting pick in a way. Like the boys were saying, 90 minutes nailed. Actually scored quite a lot of points, I think, in FPL last season. Went a little bit under the radar, so I like that. It's a little bit different. Salah, Grealish. We don't know. I won't comment on Grealish because we don't really know what's happening there. Fernandes, obviously great. But the two red flags for me probably are Jimenez and Abraham. Okay, so let's move on to team number 5. So team number 5 has actually got 2 teams. This was sent in by Obama Who on Twitter, and he's commented saying these are my 2 first entries. So we'll go for team number 1 first. I'll read that out, and then we'll go to team number 2. And guys, if you could maybe give me some insight into how this would work as a multiple team strategy, because it's all very new to me, that side of the game. First up, he's got Henderson in goal, Shaw, Van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Digne, Salah, Fernandes, Buendia, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Tony. And on the bench, he's got Foster, Basuma, Ayling, and Gilmore. And I will read out the second team quickly as well. He's got Sanchez, Van Dijk, Robertson, and Veltman. Then he's got Mahrez, Salah, Sarr, and Fernandes, Bamford, Watkins, Tony, Meslier on the bench with Gilmore, Ayling, and Manquillo. And again, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm guessing it's not far off. Callum, let's go to you first on this one. What are your thoughts?
The team on the left, the first one, I'm just looking at it now, and I think it's a brilliant team. You know, it's one of those teams you look at, you're like, yeah, I could copy that very easily, and I'd be very happy. So, you know, the back four, again, we've been through it. You know, I think Liverpool, I was actually looking at the odds, and Liverpool are 5-1 to win the title this year, which I think is too much. Don't get me wrong, they weren't great last year, but you know, they basically played with no centre halves all year, and kind of Trent come back into form. Robertson, obviously Van Dijk and Kanate and Gomez, etc. Obviously Wijnaldum, I think it's quite a big miss, but the team on the left is one that I look at and I go, you know what? There's no weaknesses there in my mind. Everyone is a good price. His bench is strong. He's got good options there. So the one on the left, I love. We don't know, I guess, if Henderson's nailed. I think he probably is. I'd say that's maybe the only kind of 50-50, but I think certainly all the talk and any United fans I speak to, certainly Henderson seems to be number one, but that could be one to keep an eye on. But yeah, I love that team on the left. The one on the right, first one we're seeing with Mahrez, Man City is such a conundrum, and it's one of those, if you get Man City right, I think you do very well. But the issue is, Mahrez can go and score a hat-trick in game week 1 and then be on the bench game week 2 and 3, and it's just the way that Pep plays his team. So Mahrez is the only Man City player that's kind of tempting me as well at the minute. So I really like that pick. Sarr, again, is one that I've seen in quite a few drafts that I really like. I think he's going to be... If Watford are going to stay up, Sarr's going to need to have a massive season. And I think we'll know very early if Watford have got anything to offer. So I really like that pick. My one thing on the team on the right is I'd probably say there's a bit too much money in keepers there. I don't think you need a 5 and a 4.5. I think Foster is more than good enough to take up a 4 mil spot, and then it gives you an extra 0.5 elsewhere to go and play with. And again, Veltman's kind of similar to Dunk. Again, I think Lamptey's injured for a while, isn't he? So Veltman should be nailed for the start of the season. But yeah, you know what? That team on the left, I'm looking at it now and trying to give some constructive criticism, but I don't think I can, because they're all players that I would be more than happy to have in my team. So yeah, that one on the left I really, really like for sure.
Joshy boy, what's your thoughts?
Absolutely. So yeah, the one on the left is just it's really template team, but not in a bad way. I think as Callum said, I'd be happy to enter that team as my team. I think there's no one to fault. The right, so talking about the strategy element of entering multiple teams for a second, Reece. So yeah. I think he's along the right lines of like keeping the core of the team the same, but then making a few subtle changes where he's not so sure in his team. I like Mahrez, I like Sarr, as Callum said, and he's also spent too much in goal, I think. Ironically, the only exception to the 5 and 4-5 thing I might consider is I might consider a 4.5 sub goalie for Henderson, just in case Henderson isn't nailed and we lose out on that. So that's the only situation where I think I'd consider spending that much in goal, just to give yourself a bit of cover for in case Henderson gets randomly dropped or something. But I wouldn't pick Meslier and Sanchez as a goalkeeper pairing. I think you can go 4-5-4-5 there, or 5-4, to make it 9 million in total. I love Mahrez. I love Sarr. Veltman's fine for 4-5. I think that's fine as a 4-5-1. The one I really don't like is Bamford, and that might just be personal preference here. He's 8 million on Fanteam, or he might be 7.5. He's one of those two. He's one of those two prices, I think. That's a little bit too much for me for their opening fixtures. I don't think he's going to be a 90-minute man as much as he was last year because Rodrigo's back. I do really like Watkins and Toney, so I guess it's all right to have a slightly punty third striker. And I haven't seen many people with Bamford either, so that might be a nice, from an ownership point of view, it might be a really low percentage, but he's just not for me. I don't know. What do you think, Reece?
On Bamford.
Just the team in general as well. Yeah,
I'll start off with Bamford. Is it price-wise in Fanteam? Is he the same as FPL, 8 million, or is he 7.5?
I'm just gonna triple check now. Hold on. I think he's 7.5. Bamford is.
Yeah, I think he is as well.
He's 7.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. In that case, I think he is a good option. I agree with you, Josh, about the uncertainty of minutes. This was kind of their last season, though. If you remember, before the start of last season, with the Rodrigo Bamford thing, there was a bit of a reluctance, I seem to remember, of people going in on Bamford before the season started because of the Rodrigo thing. I seem to remember Rodrigo maybe playing a little bit more centrally, like in the Stuart Dallas role, quite a lot for Leeds. So they could both be in the team together, and maybe Dallas drops back into one of the fullback positions, but then I think they've signed a new fullback as well. So I think it's a bit of a wait and watch, I think, for Bamford. Similar to last season, but he's not as cheap as he was last season, so it's not It's not really the same situation. In terms of the team in general, so I'll start off with team number 1, the Henderson team. I agree with you about the Henderson goalkeeper shout. I just think it's too uncertain for me personally to even pick Henderson. I know there has been rumours on Twitter that Henderson is the number 1 goalkeeper, etc. But if De Gea is still at the club, I'd just be worried. I'd just be worried that he comes in and gets a game. Like, what do we think the plan is? Do we think De Gea is just going to play Carabao Cup and FA Cup and Champions League? Maybe that's the case, and I think that would be okay, but it's just too uncertain, I think, for me, Henderson in general. If you get it right, obviously that's great, because you've got a 5 million, I'm guessing he's 5 million in Fanteam. I know he is in FPL. You've got a 5 million Man United goalkeeper, and Man United have got a decent defence, and now adding Varane into that as well, you would think they'd have an excellent defence, like elite. Shaw, again, very good pick. Van Dijk, we spoke about earlier, a bit of a wait and watch, but potential to be amazing. Trent and Digne, we know what they're all about, and they got a very high ceiling, I think. Salah, Fernandes, Buendia, I like as a triple up. The question marks on Buendia from the last team still stand. Calvert-Lewin, Watkins and Toney, excellent front three. Can't fault that at all. The bench, Foster, Basuma, Ayling and Gilmore is fine. It's a fine bench. But again, it comes back to the Henderson thing, which Josh mentioned. I think maybe just the goalkeeper thing is where I would adjust this team. But apart from that, like Callum said, it's a really good team and I really like it. Team number 2, Sanchez, Van Dijk, Robertson and Veltman. The issue I have with that back line is Veltman, really. Is he going to be first choice? If Lamptey comes back into the team, does Veltman drop out, or will he come back and play in the centre-back role? I'm not sure, and that's why I wouldn't pick him, but I might be just ill-informed about that, and he might be a 90-minute guy. Maybe one of you guys, or Josh, maybe have you got an idea about Veltman in terms of nailedness?
He's nailed till Lamptey comes back, and then there's a bit of a question mark over it. I just think the Lamptey injury might be one of those that goes on and on and on again like it did last year. It just seems like he's not fit at all.
Yeah.
So it might be that Veltman gets a good sort of 10 weeks, but I agree with you, there might be better 4.5 options anyway in defence. So especially when you've already got the Brighton goalkeeper, do you need a double up on Brighton defence? I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So the double up, as well as the uncertainty over the development position, maybe could be, like you say, just go somewhere else. There's a lot of options.
Just that actually reach on that, because Scooped FPL in the comments is just, but I really like the team on the left, but double United and double Liverpool defence seems a bit dodgy to me, and obviously it's the same on the right. Josh, in terms of double ups, are you happy to go like 2 teams across your 4 back line, or do you think it's a bit too aggressive?
No, I think you have to play aggressive, to be honest. If you've got ambitions to win this whole thing or come in the top 20, I think you need to just nail these. You need to get lucky with the double ups, basically. You need to nail 3 clean sheets in 5 weeks every time you have a weird double up or whatever. And these aren't even risky double ups, I don't think, on the left particularly. Man United are hopefully going to be one of the best teams in the league if you've got a couple of Man United defenders. Liverpool have always been a good defence when they've had fit centre backs. So I don't think there's a problem with those 2 double ups. On either side, I don't think it's the worst thing. But I'd just be a bit unsure about Veltman's minutes if Lamptey comes back at any point, is the only thing.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, in terms of how aggressive to be, Josh is obviously your man to answer that more than me. But I don't think there's a problem with certainly the Brighton double up. I would be a little bit more worried with the Liverpool double up, especially with Van Dijk in there and the uncertainty. He's in both teams actually. But again, it could go really well, and if it does, that's when it pays off, kind of thing. So I don't think it's an issue, but it's just, like you say, it's a bit of a gamble, and that's what we're doing at the end of the day, isn't it? Just having a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, my problem on FPL is I normally go for 2 triple ups in defence on
Really?
FPL, because I'm just a really aggressive wild manager, yeah, and I haven't hit one of those yet. So I'm hoping one year I'll just hit the 2 triple ups and I'll hit the 2 best ones, and suddenly I'll fly up the ranks. But it hasn't worked out so far on FPL. So.
It's a nightmare.
It could be that Konate or Gomez actually could be an option. Obviously, we're not really sure. I think Konate will probably start the season with Van Dijk, but it could be that Van Dijk's partner could be a cheaper alternative that I think we could see people turn into if it kind of unless obviously they're rotating. Obviously, even Matip's still in the question, I think. So, you
Yeah.
know, if someone can nail down that other kind of centre half spot next to Van Dijk, that could be a decent, cheaper kind of Liverpool option as well.
Yeah, Konate really went under the radar for me. Where did they get him from? Was it Palace?
No, Leipzig. No, it's the guy from Leipzig, isn't it?
Leipzig. Oh, there you are. Sounds like pedigree then. Is he good? Do you guys know much about him?
I know he's very highly rated, and every time I've watched him, he's very quick, he's very agile, he's a bit of a unit. I think the last time I watched him actually was the France under 21s, and it was him and Upamecano, and both of them together are just absolute units. So yeah, obviously, you know, very raw. I think he's like 21 still, so for a centre half, it's very, very young. But he's got bags of ability, and he's very highly rated. So yeah, I'm not sure if he'll nail down that spot, kind of with Matip and Gomez as well. I think it could be a very much of a rotation. But if someone can nail down that second Liverpool centre half spot, I think that could be a good cheap alternative.
It's the Liverpool centre back situation is so strange, isn't it? Didn't they sign like Ben Davis from like Preston last year in January, and someone else as well.
I think that Kabak's, he's going back. I think has he gone back? It was only a load, wasn't he? I think he's gone back. I can't remember, but I think that Ben Davis is being sold without playing a game, so that was a waste, wasn't it? But I guess they just needed someone to try and cover when they literally had no centre halves left.
Yeah, so back to, if I just finish up on my opinion then on the team number 2. So I got to the midfield. Mahrez, for me, is just too much of a risk. He's one of these players who could play, might not play, could get you a massive return, but could get you 0. So in the gambling sense, I like it, but in a more conservative sense, I think there's other options, especially at the price. Salah, Sarr, and Fernandes. I like Sarr is definitely the worst of those, and to be honest with you, I haven't seen much of him, but just the fact that he plays for Watford kind of is a bit of a steer away for me. Bamford, we spoke about. Watkins and Toney, excellent. Meslier, Gilmore, Ayling, and Manquillo. I think the bench is fine, apart from maybe Manquillo, who maybe I'm missing a trick here, but it just doesn't look like he plays at all for Newcastle. Am I right there, Josh, do you think?
Yeah, he's just a 4 million. That's why I think it's just like filling the last slot with like the Norwich guy who we can't pronounce. It's like an equivalent to him, basically. I think so. It's not the worst thing, but as we talked about earlier, I think that 5 million goalkeeper slot on the bench is a bit too much money to spend on a reserve goalie, I think.
Yeah, I could get on board with that, certainly. Yeah, so Meslier 5 million, is it, and Sanchez 4.5. Yeah, it seems like a bit much, especially when there does seem to be so many 4.5 options in Fanteam.
Yeah, I feel like they've really underpriced Wolves across the back line, to be honest. So I think like that's a really nice way to go with Sarr and Semedo, etc. Like they're all 4.5, so I think that's a nice way in for quite cheap, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, last team then, guys. Team number 4. Can't remember. Paulinho sent this one in on Twitter. He said he's looking forward to it, and Josh actually commented saying how satisfied he was with the colour coordination on the bench. So I'll just read it for the benefit of the audio listeners. Henderson in goal again. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Digne, and Tierney at the back. First time we've seen Tierney today. Salah, Jota, again another debutant on the stream. Grealish, Souček, Fernandes, Calvert-Lewin, Toney. So that's his first 11. He's got Sanchez and Veltman on the bench with Fofana, and I can't quite see who that last player is. Is it your boy Hurst, Josh, is it?
Hurst, yeah, it's my boy Hurst making an appearance on the stream, yeah.
Go on then, what do you think, Josh?
Well, first of all, I just want to say to Callum, I haven't seen a single Tottenham player on any of these teams. I'm not sure.
This makes me happy because it means when I throw in Kane and Son and we beat Man City 3-0 game week 1, I'm probably going to be winning. So it's fine because Kane's getting captained as well. So yeah, it's music to my ears seeing those Spurs players here.
Yeah, no one's gone for Spurs.
It's making me think Son is an amazing pick, to be honest, because I think he's so well priced and no one's putting him in. And so like it might be a way to go for me. I think I'm going to take a closer look at that.
So what's his price, Josh, on Fanteam Son?
He's 9.5, mate. I think it's so cheap. I think it's like he's 9.5. I think he's 10 on FPL. Him and Mane are in that like really have been consistent for like 3-4 years in the Premier League, and they're like 9.5 and 10.
Yeah,
I think they're just really nice prices in general, to be honest, rather than like punting on an unknown Sancho or something like that, who like will probably start, but he's never played in the Premier League before, so we're not sure really.
100%. I had a couple of questions actually the other day, very much just saying Son or Sancho, and because they're the similar price bracket. And you're 100% right. If you look at Son's numbers over the past 4 or 5 seasons, you're literally guaranteeing yourself 170 plus points. Whereas Sancho, you're not really guaranteeing yourself anything apart from a highly rated, promising player who, okay, is English and will probably fit into England in terms of his personal life. There won't be any worries there. But he hasn't played in the Premier League, has he? I don't think so. Yeah.
It's a very interesting one. So this guy's actually done the thing I talked about with covering Henderson with the 4.5, just so if the worst does happen with De Gea, then you do have a goalkeeper of some description, and then you can maybe downgrade Henderson and just have your 4-5 or whatever. But
yeah,
the thing about Henderson is, if he's nailed, he's the best pick on the game. I think a 5 million Man United goalkeeper is just something we've never seen on fantasy before.
Yeah,
and the defense has improved. So I think it's definitely worth taking the risk on him in some of your teams. I wouldn't do it in all of your teams if you're entering quite a few.
Yeah.
But I think in some teams it's really good. Trent and Dean, we've already spoke about those. They're great picks. Tierney is very attacking for an Arsenal. I'd say he's the most attacking Arsenal defender. So if you're going to pick an Arsenal defender, I don't think Tierney's a bad pick at all. I also mentioned White earlier. I think he's more than fine as well for 0.5 cheaper. My favourite pick in the midfield here, there's some likely candidates. Souček is my favourite pick in this midfield. He's a 90-minute guy. He had the most shots in the box of anyone under 7 million last year by almost double. He's just an insanely attacking guy who we think is like a CDM, but he's not a CDM at all. He's literally always in the 6-yard box, heading the ball towards the goal. So I think he's a great fan team option with his 90-minute pedigree as well. I think he missed 1 minute last year because if you remember, he got sent off against Fulham in the last minute.
Oh, the dodgy one, yeah.
It was the worst red card decision I saw last season. I think it was an absolute joke. And I owned him, obviously, and the guys I was chasing didn't have him, so I was really annoyed with that one. But
I was cheering that one. I didn't have him, and I was just like, yes, come on.
Like I said, he missed 1 minute in the whole season, so I like him. Jota, I'm a bit less sure on. Again, it's similar to Mahrez in some regard, I suppose. He's just not nailed to start. Like, he might get away with game week 1 because I think Firmino's coming back a bit later than all the other players because I think he's had an extended break. But I still wouldn't be 100% sure Jota was even starting in week 1, to be honest. And beyond that, it's almost a coin flip every week between him and Firmino, I think, of who's going to start. They're both nice prices at 7.5, but I just wouldn't like to say which way to go. And then we've already mentioned about Grealish. We don't know where he's going to be, so I don't think he's a pick if he moves to Man City, especially personally. What do you guys think?
I agree with you, yeah. I think his appeal just goes down a little bit, which sounds weird, but he just becomes another one of the Pep Roulette players, doesn't he? I don't, even if they spend 100+ million on him, are you going to be sitting there in your chair on Saturday morning thinking, yeah, Grealish, he's nailed. He's good. I don't need to check the team sheets. You're not. I think it's just going to be a headache. Callum, what do you think?
Yeah, was it you that had Souček in your team, Reece, last week?
Yeah, and I agree with everything Josh has said. Absolutely, yeah.
I love that Souček pick.
Yeah,
I really do. He's a great price point, and he's 90-minute man. He gets his clean sheets. He gets shots on target. He pretty much gives you everything, everything that you could want, I think. So I love the Souček pick. But I'll tell you what I've taken from this the most is the fact that I think every team so far has had Salah, not Mane, which just leads me down the Mane route because takeaway penalties, there's not a lot of difference there.
Yeah.
Every team has had Fernandes, which makes me happier to avoid him because I don't know. I know that United get a lot of penalties, and he has been form-wise, back end of last year and obviously through the Euros was pretty non-existent. And I just think at 12, is he 12.5 or 12, one or the other?
12, yeah.
12 is, when I can have Son for 9.5, I know which way I'm going every time. So this has made me a lot more confident to pick sort of Mane instead of Salah, and definitely, like Josh said, have some Son in that midfield as well, because I love the Trent, the Dino, and all those. They're nailed, they're in. But I just think, yeah, Son and Mane now are being massively overlooked. So I like it. But yeah, in terms of the team, exactly the same. Just Jota is certainly, I think the African Cup of Nations happens this year. So I think Salah, Mane are off at some stage, which means I'm sure Jota will take over. But it's certainly not for me as a first sort of game week pick. But yeah, the rest of it is pretty good. I think Arsenal are not very good, so I would stay away from Tierney. But that's probably my Spurs head on, so I wouldn't take much. But yeah, I like everything else about that team. Just Jota would be the one for me that I would change. But yeah, no one's going Mane. Is it really just the penalties that take Salah over? I guess it is, isn't it? But 2.5 million extra. Yeah, I think Mane is going to be my route going forward for most of them.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on that is just Salah and Mane is basically a coin flip, I think, until you add penalties on top. So it just gives Salah that just the extra edge. So and Mane didn't have a great season last year, but the fact that they priced him so much lower is obviously it's hugely attractive as well. And you could even probably fit both of them into your teams. Very interesting to hear then you strategize about maybe going without Salah and going without Bruno. Josh, what do you think about that?
I think you could build an amazing team, couldn't you? Think about the names you could have. You could have sort of almost 4 or 5 of these mid premiums, so like the 9 millions to the 10 millions. You could have sort of 5 of them in your team if you were to go without those two. It might be a more balanced team. It might be like you get off to an early lead with that if Salah and Bruno don't go absolutely nuts in the first sort of 5-6 weeks. I really like that, and I think I'll definitely be going without Bruno in some teams, and I'll probably go without Salah in some other ones as well, just because I'm so high on Mane. I think he's an amazing pick. The other thing to say about this team quickly is I really like the fact that it's 3-5-2 because I haven't seen many other teams in this formation either. Just pack a bit more into the midfield. I know there's lots of good strikers, but I think like there's lots of good midfielders as well. So this might be a really nice alternative way of doing it, and just having a bit of an extra midfielder over an extra striker just to be a bit different again. So, yeah, I really like this team.
Josh, we've not seen any Chelsea anywhere. Is that something you're going to go as well?
Yeah, their fixtures are horrible for the first 6 weeks. They've got Palace first week, which is really good, but 2 to 6, they've got Liverpool, United and City in that period. I think it's just with the extra
and Spurs,
bit about...
Don't forget about Spurs.
Yeah, it might be Spurs instead of United, actually. I think I might have got that wrong, to be fair. But I think just with how unnailed they all seem to be at Chelsea, I think there's only really Mason Mount I know will probably start the season every game. I'm happy to just wait and see on the first 6 games, and then they've got a really nice run after week 7, I think. So I'll probably go in on Chelsea at that point with whoever looks to be playing 90 minutes regularly, or maybe even go for a defender like Chilwell or something. So that's my take on Chelsea. What do you guys think about Chelsea?
Just to expand on that, a little bit, I would like to throw that back as a question to you guys. Chelsea and Man City, I think we could say without much doubt, are the best 2 defences in the league, right? But then we haven't seen any Chelsea defenders and we haven't seen any Man City defenders, as far as I can recall, in the teams sent in today. How much weight... Do you think we're putting too much weight into fixtures? Because does a difficult fixture make a bad defense a good defense a bad defense? Or do you think people have generally got the right idea in essentially avoiding the 2 best defenses in the league because of fixtures? And that's what I'm making a massive assumption that's what people are doing. But I think generally you could agree that's what it looks like people are doing. So yeah, I just want to throw that out as a question to you guys. What do you think?
For me, I'm always trying to think what are the mass people going to do on this game, and how can I be different? Now, a double Chelsea defence to start with might be one of the best differential plays there is, because they were the best defensive team in the league under Tuchel since he joined. So I don't think Mendy's out of the question. I don't like spending that much on a goalie, but just for the sake of being different, having like Mendy and Chilwell at the back might be like a really nice way of picking up some double clean sheets where for the best team in the league, in my opinion, defensively. The only thing I'd say, Reece, is like Man United and Liverpool have both got really good defences too, or at least we assume they will have once they've got these signings in, Van Dijk's back, etc. Surely you should just pick the two teams that you think are almost as good but have better fixtures, rather than going for the Chelsea guys and the City guys. You know what I mean? And maybe it's the wrong way to think about it. Maybe I know Az loves Cancelo, the guy who I do the Fancy Football Scout podcast with. He's all over Cancelo this season. He thinks he's their best left back and their best right back, so he thinks he's just going to play all the time basically. But you never know with Pep, do you? Unfortunately.
Yeah, I watched a bit of that stream. I think you did yesterday with him, and I heard him say that, and it's an interesting point of view. I think he might be right, but again, it's just the question of you're spending a lot of money on a player who you're not certain of starting. But I agree with him that he's so good when he does play, and so like his ceiling is so high. What's your thoughts, Callum, on fixtures? Are we paying too much attention to them, or is it a good idea?
I'm going down the route, and I've spoke about this on a few podcasts and stuff, that in the Euros I tried to go 2 differential too early, and it was the first season long that I'd played, and I say season long, 7 game long, whatever it was, and I found myself just way below the crowd too early, and obviously it could have gone the other way and I could have been way above the crowd, but the way that I want to play it this year in my head is that, like I said, I'm pretty nailed now on 5. I'll have 5 teams. I'll have one of those that's pretty crazy, that it will either pay off or do nothing. But then my other 4, I want to be in the mix for as long as I can until we get to game week 25, 26, where there's kind of those 10, 11, 12 games left where it's like, right, let's evaluate. I'm in 1,000th aggressive and, all take slightly different routes to try and get one of them as high as I can. So I agree with Josh in the fact that my one crazy team potentially could have a double Chelsea defence, but I want to try and stay. And, people have seen this debate constantly, that people are, template's boring. Template is template because they're generally the best picks. So it's like, well, actually, they might be template, but it's the best picks for that time with the price points, with the fixtures. So as much as they could be great options, for me, I don't want to risk getting too far behind the crowd too early. I want to try and stay. I want to be a bit of a follower for a while, and then eventually I'll go my own way, and hopefully it takes me up. But yeah, in my one crazy out of my 5 teams, that it could do something. But yeah, I agree. I think just the fact that we've got the Liverpool, Man United, I don't think it's worth enough of a risk. There's not a big enough upside, but there's quite a big downside to it. So I'm happy to stay kind of down that route for the time being.
Interesting, definitely some interesting points. The word template I hate. It's just, it implies to me that there's a way to play the game where you can just load in a template and you can go from there and you're good to go. It just takes all the kind of joy and time that I spend into building my team and just sucks it into one little word which someone can just click on it and just build a template team. So I hate it because of that reason. And
this is why, Reece, right? You stick Harry Kane and you stick Son in because it's not template, and then you can just fly. Because also, Dele Alli's tempted me at 6.5 again. I'm turning this into the Fanteam Focus Spurs stream.
Yeah,
but,
Dele.
Kane and Son, like I said last week, Spurs were so bad and they still were like the 2nd and 4th highest scorers across the whole season. Like, I'm all over it. And that is why, when you're talking about template, I always think if you can't enjoy playing, especially something like this, it doesn't take loads of time. Obviously we're in the situation where we're creating content where it takes a bit more time, but I need to enjoy it at the same time. And I love having that double feeling of Spurs score, get in, and at the same time, I'm captaining Kane every week because it gives me that more enjoyment than, picking a Salah and captaining Salah.
Yeah.
And then inside me thinking, oh, Salah scored again. I'm not bothered. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather, yes, Spurs have scored again. I've got Kane, I've got Son, because it's only ever Kane and Son that score. So yeah, that's kind of even more down the route where I go for it. There's just about 3 or 4 questions here, Reece. I don't know if you've seen.
I did see one. Yeah, go on.
So Adam Clark has put, I'm assuming to Josh because he's more knowledgeable than us. So he's put with Man City, it's either Diaz or Edison. And then he's also put, do you think Reece James nails down a place this season?
I'm glad you asked that because I saw that and I was going to bring that up because I love Reece James. But Josh, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I know he did really well for shots on target last year. I believe he was up there with your boy Dunk that you were talking about. Even though he didn't play all the minutes last year at all, he still had loads and loads of shots, which obviously is more relevant for this season than it was for last year. I really hope he nails down a slot because I think he's a great footballer. But I think what counts against him sometimes is he's like a utility guy. He can play 4 or 5 different positions, and so they just sort of slot him in. His best position for me is right wing back, but like they just sort of sometimes slot him in at right centre back. They play him holding midfield to come on off the bench and play there. Like, so I just worry that he's going to be used in that regard again. But if we look at the first 6 weeks, which is potentially our plan, Callum, like if we're just going like quite safe to begin with, I think there's an entry point for Reece James that I talked about, like maybe week 7, where they've got great fixtures, and if he's played 5 of the first 6 games, it's almost worth the risk. I think on him. I think he's 5.5, right? So I think he's got a nice price as well.
Yeah.
And just to add to the Man City defense, I'd say I'd add Cancelo, because I really do think Cancelo will play quite a lot this season. Because Zinchenko's leaving, I believe, which is massive for him at left back, because Cancelo was like competing with Zinchenko, and I don't think Mendy's going to come into the picture. So I think Cancelo could be really, really quite assured at left back if Zinchenko does leave.
That's mad, because I heard rumours that Zinchenko was going to be like first choice left back this season, just really like loose rumours on Twitter, but that is interesting. Just going back to Reece James, I just think 5.5 million, it's just insane. Like, I think Chelsea are the best defence in the league, and I think the numbers back that up. They play wing backs, which is amazing for fantasy games. I think Reece James is an excellent, like you said, this is his best position, right wing back. He played it in the Champions League final, for example, so he trusts him in big games in that position. There's talk of them maybe signing this other guy who can potentially play that position, but apart from that, I think the other people who have played that position are essentially wingers like Callum Hudson-Odoi, and I think even Pulisic has gone back in that position. Maybe Azpilicueta has gone in there once, but I don't think he's a wing back at all myself personally. Listen, I might be wrong, and game week 1 Reece James might be on the bench, and if you've listened to me, I do apologise, but I don't know, I really like him. Maybe he's got the same name as me, but he doesn't spell it correctly, which is just don't get me started on that either. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask you quickly for a real quick sum up of this team, because we've talked a lot, but not a lot about this team. So give me a number from 1 to 10 on what you think the team is, 1 being terrible, 10 being perfect, and just a really quick summary of maybe what you would change. So I'm going to give it probably a 7. I would change Jota. Hurst I don't know much about, so I'll leave that. I'd change Jota, Veltman. And apart from that, I don't mind the team at all. Callum, what do you think?
Yeah, Jota's the one for me that, I'm not sure on Grealish. It is a wait and see, and I just don't like Arsenal, so I'd get rid of Tierney. But it's a solid 8 out of 10 for me. There's only a couple of changes there that I think need to be made. But apart from that, it's certainly if I saw it entered, I wouldn't be like that's terrible. So that's for me, that's probably good. But my opinion is probably nothing.
Go on, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to go like 8.5 out of 10. I think I've built a lot of teams similar to this structure, so I might be a bit more biased because it's similar to my line of thinking. Just Jota for me that needs to go out. I think rest are more than fine, to be honest.
One last point that I'd like to ask you guys before we kind of draw the stream to a close. 5 in midfield. I've been thinking about this on and off for quite a while, because generally in FPL, I know, for example, all your top point scorers at the end of the season are basically midfielders. You'll have 1 or 2 forwards in there, like Kane, for example, and maybe 1 or 2 defenders like Trent. But do you think that having 5 in midfield, like 5 power midfielders, is a good idea because of that? Josh, go to you first.
Yeah, I really do, mate. And for me, it's because a lot of midfielders who are classified as midfielders on fantasy are strikers. Like Salah, Mane, and Son are strikers. They play like as part of a front 3 or a front 2 at times. And they get given the same points as like the holding midfield players. They get given like 5 points for a goal and 1 for a clean sheet. And over the season, that's going to add up, isn't it, to beat all or most of the strikers. So if you're going down the line of having a Mane, Salah, and Son, which by the way, after this stream, I think is something I really want to do now, have those 3 in midfield with the likes of a Souček and maybe another slightly cheaper ones around there. I think 5 in midfield is going to be what I go on a lot of my teams. I think I will also have some 3-4-3s, but I think 5 in midfield's looking really strong to me at the moment.
What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, this has certainly put me in that direction, because even with, obviously, because I'm going to have Kane in every team, it means I would pretty much have to play Tony in every team if I was going to go 3 strikers. So I am definitely going to go down that 5 midfield route. I love it. I love it. Like I said, with the clean sheets, with the point for the 90 minutes, with an extra point for scoring, an extra 0.1 for a shot on target, all those kind of things. Yeah, I'm all over that 5 in midfield now. I think this has certainly changed me in that direction.
You heard it here first, guys. We're all over the 5 in midfield. I really like it as well. I think it kind of does depend on the other positions, weirdly, in a way, like what you can get out of the other positions, like defense and attack as well. Don't forget to hit the like on the video, guys. If you're watching live, thank you very much for watching. Liking the videos really helps us out. Hit subscribe if you're new. I'm going to hand over to Callum to go through the giveaway. Callum, over to you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you. Before we do that, there's just 2 final things in the comments. The first one is the fact that Kane isn't playing week 1 regardless. I'm 99% sure he will play week 1 regardless. Even if Kane's not trained, he'll be back this week, I think. 100% Harry Kane starts in game week 1, especially if he's for Spurs. You don't have Harry Kane, you don't put him on the bench against Man City. So I've got no worries about that. And obviously he's just put Atai, that's the best formation for this season, 4-3-3. For me, it's either a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. I think are probably the ways that I'll go.
Just quickly on that, Josh. Sorry, Callum. Quickly on that. I think you might have your Spurs shades on there in terms of Harry Kane starting game week 1. I think they might be a little bit rose-coloured. Josh, very quickly, can I get your opinion? Does he start game week 1? I don't think he does.
I don't know enough about that, but what I do know is I think I'm not going to be picking him at 12 million versus Man City in game week 1 anyway. I wouldn't even want him to play in that game, literally. So I'd much rather spend 7.5 or 7 in that striker position and just have lots of options to move towards, rather than having Kane and maybe having to downgrade 5 million in week 2 or something if it does that he gets a transfer. But Callum does know more than me on this one, so I'm going to trust him, I think.
For me, it's just the rumours that you hear, and it just all fits together and makes too much sense. Like, maybe he goes to Man City, but maybe it's after game week 1, so he doesn't play against Man City, etc., etc. And I totally understand as a Spurs fan, Callum, you just don't want to believe it. But as an outsider looking in, I can see that kind of happening. It might not, but yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Anyway, giveaway, because we have got lives to go to. So I haven't made a question this week. I probably should have. So hopefully, I will triple check that people have responded to the Twitter thing. If not, we will just throw out a different Twitter one. And I need to remember there's a delay this week, so not to expect answers straight away. We're going to go with the first person in the chat to name. Oh, God. No. Let's go with the first person to reply with who is Josh's preferred 4.5 million midfielder that he talked about earlier in the stream, because this will prove who has been here and who is a diehard. So who was Josh's favourite 4.5 million midfielder? First one in the chat wins a free ticket and potentially could turn that free ticket into £200,000.
Excellent question. We did speak at length about this player. I definitely know who it is. So I've just texted my missus. She's going to get in the chat now.
I believe it's very poor spelling from Adam Clark, but we'll let him off. Yeah, Billy Gilmore, I believe, unless I've read that wrong, Josh. But yeah, Adam Clark. Adam, if you pop us a DM on Twitter, we will sort you out a free ticket at some point across this weekend. But yeah, Billy Gilmore, well done for listening.
Guys, that remains everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but that is the end of the stream. Thank you very much for watching. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. Where can the people find you?
Thank you very much, guys. So yeah, I'm just mainly on Twitter at the moment. My Twitter handle is Warwick Pokersock, which, as we talked about, is an original handle from about 10-15 years ago. But there we go. I've kept it. So Warwick Pokersock on Twitter for me.
Thanks, Josh. Great insight. Really enjoyed having you. Hopefully get you on again sometime. Callum, thanks for coming on again. What's going on Fanteam Focus at the moment?
Lots of stuff this week. We're joined next Saturday by Luke FPL Irons, who's a bit of a championship expert, as Fanteam have got the championship kind of monster next Saturday, which starts next Saturday. So he'll be here next Saturday if anyone that wants to go through that. He'll be, putting in his team and kind of going through that. So that'll be the next live stream. And then obviously, as always, I think actually David's already recorded a podcast with Josh that hasn't yet gone out. So I think that will go out at some stage this week. And then, the content will start to be upped with our writers. We've given them a lovely bit of time off and kind of come August now that obviously what we didn't want to do is throw out loads of content 2 weeks ago that then we look at in a week and go, well, that was irrelevant because these people have moved and whatever else. So it'll be certainly upped. I think we've got 2 weeks now off the top of my head. Yeah, about a couple of weeks now to the start of the season. So next week will be Luke in the championship monster going through that main event. And then the following week will obviously be me, you, and we will find somebody else, maybe Ben, I think, might come on from Fanteam Focus, and we will kind of nail a few of our lineups. And obviously, we'll start going through some monster lineups as well, because, as much as we talk about the season long, every week there's, thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds up for grabs in the monsters too. So it gives us lots to talk about. So, as always, Fanteam Focus on Twitter, and the website is just fanteamfocus.com. But please make sure you've subscribed and liked to this, because obviously we are new, we are trying to grow, and genuinely any subscription and any genuinely moves us up, which means we can do more, etc. And you can hear from people that are talented like Josh rather than me and Reese when we run out of money. So I'm joking, Josh is not being paid for this. He's given us his lovely time. But genuinely, if people can give us as much help as possible, it's appreciated.
Wicked, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're new, and that has been us for this week. We'll see you later. Thanks.